Well, we're continuing here on Morning Live after the sad breaking news. But moving on to this story, the African Continental Free Trade Area presents huge potential for the advancement of economic development on the continent. Now, the Free Trade Area Agreement was supposed to come into effect this month, but it had to be postponed to 2021 due to the outbreak of COVID-19. The effective implementation of this agreement could lead to Africa's mutually beneficial and, of course, inclusive growth. The African Continental Free Trade Area Secretary General, His Excellency Wamkele Mene, joins us now via Zoom from Ethiopia to talk to us about what has been happening prior to the launch next year. So we welcome you, Your Excellency. Thanks so much for speaking to us here on Morning Live.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So, with the unfortunate postponement of the launch of the African Continental Free Trade Area due to the coronavirus pandemic, what are the plans for next year?
Well, as you know, the heads of states have directed we now start implementation on the 1st of January 2021, implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area, which because of COVID-19 had delayed. There was outstanding work that we could not conclude in the months of April and March. And so now we have an opportunity, of course, COVID-19 allowing, we now have an opportunity to conclude that outstanding work and to get ourselves, the state parties, to get ourselves ready for the new trading date of 1st of January 2021. And I believe that even in the context of COVID-19, the implementation of the AfCFTA is absolutely critical as a recovery, as Africa's recovery, economic recovery plan as we start 2021 in a rather economically depressed environment. Africa shall require a boost in terms of our overall economic standing.
And of course, these challenges notwithstanding, some of the opportunities, because through this agreement, Africa's 54 countries will have the potential to become the second largest trading bloc that could be ranked alongside the EU, if it functions well, of course, Your Excellency. So just for ordinary folk, what can we really expect once this agreement actually takes off next year?
What we expect from this agreement is to reduce the barriers that exist in Africa, barriers to intra-Africa trade. Intra-Africa trade at the moment is at only 18%. Which is a very, very low figure. We as Africa trade more with other parts of the world than we trade with ourselves. So we need to focus on boosting intra-Africa trade. We should expect that there will be a significant flow of goods and services that result from reduced barriers to trade in the form of tariffs. We also should expect that there will also be reduced barriers to intra-Africa investment, which, as you know, across the world we are seeing an increase in barriers to investment. We're seeing protectionist measures being taken in the area of investment. And in Africa, we want to go the opposite direction. We actually want to ensure that there is a greater and an enhanced flow of investment within Africa. And third, and most importantly, we should expect that in the long term, this agreement should place Africa on a trajectory to a higher value addition, manufacturing, to a higher level of industrialization, and to create jobs and centers of manufacturing excellence across the African continent. What we've seen from this crisis is that Africa has a significant weakness, and that weakness is a lack of an industrial base to enable Africa to trade with and amongst ourselves. And so this agreement is a really critical tool to enable us to accelerate our industrial development objectives and to enable us to meet the objectives that are set out in Agenda 2063, the Africa that we want. So these are some of the high-level expectations that we should have as Africans. On a macro level, I think we should expect on a micro level that goods will transit through borders much, much quicker. We have an agreement that places an obligation on all state parties, on all countries, to ensure that the transit of goods is efficient and that the transit of goods happens in terms of rules that are predetermined. Whether you are trading in East Africa, in West Africa, in Central Africa, the transit of your goods, the rules that apply to the transit of your goods will be the same on the African continent. And we're doing all of this under this agreement to ensure that we boost intra-Africa trade, as I said earlier, to levels that are significantly higher than the 18% where it stands now. We create jobs and that we expedite Africa's industrial development.
Well, I hope we'll have opportunity at a later stage to look more into some of those barriers, His Excellency, because 18% is very, very low for intra-African trade. But just a final question. Studies by the IMF, the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, those studies state that the free trade area does have the potential, of course, to increase growth. Now, do these studies also estimate how much Africa would actually be worth and how much more advanced the continent would be if we actually exploited the benefits of our natural resources to the fullest?
Well, we will focus on a range of sectors. Not just minerals and primary commodities. We want to focus on services trade. We want to focus on goods trade. We want to focus on digitization of trade. We want to diversify Africa's economy. In the long term, of course, it's going to take time. And so the area of minerals and beneficiation is absolutely critical, and so is agriculture. But I think in the final analysis, what is in Africa's interest is a diversified economy, a resilient economy that does not rely on one particular sector, that does not rely, for example, on primary commodities, because we have seen what happens when there is an over-reliance on primary commodities, and when the global commodities market is the very, very negative effect on Africa's economy, creates the problems that some of the problems that we have today. So I think the key is to diversify Africa's economies. The key is to ensure that the services sector is vibrant, whilst at the same time also focusing on trading goods and, as I said earlier, digitization and making trade more efficient, more accessible to millions and millions of Africans across the African continent.
Well, thank you so much for your time this morning. And that was the African Continental Free Trade Area Secretary General Wamkele Mene for talking to us about what is happening behind the scenes in preparation for the institution's kickoff next year following its postponement due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And of course,